everything you can. Everything you say will be held against you. Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the weekly UK Sangha. I host these calls every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Today we're here with a couple of my good friends. It's really good to see you guys. And there's no topics or questions off the bat, so I have a sutta prepared to read here, and it's called The Development of the Faculties. And this is Majjhima Nikaya 152. And this is a pretty relevant sutta to me right now because I dislocated my shoulder. So I've been experiencing a lot of painful sensations. And this sutta kind of gives inspiration of how to practice with those kinds of painful sensations and anything else that the mind finds disagreeable or doesn't like. So I'll just get right into it. And also, it's a good sutta to really tell you what's possible if you continue on with the practice. It's gonna explain what the actual capabilities of a noble one is when the faculties of the path have been fully developed. So I hope this can provide some inspiration. Okay. Thus have I heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was living at Kanjagala in a grove of mukelu trees. Then the Brahmin student Uttara, a pupil of the Brahmin Parasarya, went to the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he sat down at one side. The Blessed One then asked him, Uttara, does the Brahmin Parasarya teach his disciples the development of the faculties? He does, Master Gautama. But Uttara, how does he teach his disciples the development of the faculties? Here, Master Gautama, one does not see forms with the eye. One does not hear sounds with the ear. That is how the Brahmin Parasarya teaches his disciples the development of the faculties. If that is so, Uttara, then a blind man and a deaf man will have developed faculties according to what the Brahmin Parasarya says. For a blind man does not see forms with the eye, and a deaf man does not hear sounds with the ear. Okay, so essentially what just happened here is some student of a different teacher came to visit the Buddha, and the Buddha asked him, how does his teacher teach the development of the faculties? And the faculties pretty much means the factors of the path, or the enlightenment factors. And he says his response is, one does not see form with the eyes, and one does not hear sounds with the ear. So he's saying that like literally doesn't see anything or hear anything. And the Buddha's response to that was, well, then if you're blind and deaf, then that's the same as being enlightened. So doesn't really make sense the way that it's taught for him. And then when this was said, the Brahmin student Uttara sat silent, dismayed, with shoulders drooping, head down, glum without response. Then knowing this, the Blessed One addressed the Venerable Ananda. Ananda, the Brahmin Parasarya teaches his disciples the development of the faculties in one way, but in the Noble One's discipline, the supreme development of the faculties is otherwise. Now is the time, Blessed One. Now is the time, Sublime One, for the Blessed One to teach the supreme development of the faculties in the Noble One's discipline. Having heard it from the Blessed One, the bhikkhus will remember it. Then listen, Ananda, and attend closely to what I shall say. Yes, Venerable Sir, he replied. The Blessed One said this. Now, Ananda, how is there the supreme development of the faculties in the Noble One's discipline? Here, Ananda, when a bhikkhu sees a form with the eye, there arises in him what is agreeable. There arises in him what is disagreeable. There arises in him what is both agreeable and disagreeable. He understands thus. There has arisen in me what is agreeable. There has arisen in me what is disagreeable. There has arisen in me what is both agreeable and disagreeable. But that is conditioned, gross, dependently arisen. This is peaceful, this is sublime, that is equanimity. Yeah, so I'm going to stop there and talk about that. Yeah, so pretty much everything you see, what the mind does in a response to anything and everything that you see is either the mind goes me likey or me no likey. So you either like something you see or you don't like it. So it either creates a pleasant or unpleasant feeling. And this goes for everything you see, or both pleasant and unpleasant at the same time. And the correct way to respond to this experience happening is to understand uh, that those responses is conditioned, dependently arisen. So, and another way of saying that is it's not self. So it's just the mind responding on an instinctual level to the experience of sight, saying I like this or I don't like this, and creating a corresponding pleasant or unpleasant feeling. But that is just the mind doing what the mind does, and it's not really you. So you're not really choosing to like it. So it's not really you that likes it, and it's not really you that's experiencing um, craving or aversion for it. It's just kind of dependently arising based off the conditions of having eyesight. And this understanding, so this disentanglement with the mind's responses to what it sees, is what leads to equanimity. Okay, so it's not that you don't experience anything unpleasant or pleasant or agreeable or disagreeable. It's that you quickly realize what the mind is doing in that moment, and then return to a peaceful state of equanimity, or at least that's the practice. The agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, and both the agreeable and the disagreeable that arose cease in him, and equanimity is established. Just as a man with good eyesight, having opened his eyes, might shut them, or having shut his eyes, might open them, so too concerning anything at all, the agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, and the both agreeable and disagreeable that arose cease just as quickly, just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established. So it's using a metaphor here. Um, the experience of something being agreeable or disagreeable comes to an end as quickly as closing or opening your eyes, and there's a return to equanimity. This is called, in the Noble One's discipline, the supreme development of the faculties regarding forms cognizable by the eye. All right, so is there any questions about that or anything anyone wants to say? No? Okay, I'll just keep going then. Um, Here we go. It's gonna get kind of repetitive, by the way. But there's new stuff in each one, so it's gonna go through all the different like senses. So far we've done the eye. Again, Ananda, when a bhikkhu hears a sound with the ear, there arises in him what is agreeable. There arises in him what is disagreeable. There arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable. He understands thus. Ellipses. So it's just the same paragraph from the previous one. And equanimity is established. Just as a strong man might easily snap his fingers. So too concerning anything at all, the agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, and both agreeable and disagreeable that arose, cease just as quickly, just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established. This is called in the Noble One's discipline the supreme development of faculties regarding sounds cognizable by the ear. Again, Ananda, when a bhikkhu smells an odor with the nose, there arises in him what is agreeable. There arises in him what is disagreeable. There arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable. He understands thus ellipses, and equanimity is established. Just as raindrops on a slightly sloping lotus leaf roll off and do not remain there, so too concerning anything at all, the agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, and both the agreeable and the disagreeable that arose cease just as quickly, just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established. This is called in the Noble One's discipline the supreme development of the faculties regarding odors cognizable by the nose. Again, Ananda, when a bhikkhu tastes a flavor with the tongue, there arises in him what is agreeable. There arises in him what is disagreeable. There arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable. He understands thus, ellipses, and equanimity is established. Just as a strong man might easily spit out a ball of spit collected on the tip of his tongue. So, um, so too concerning anything at all, the agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, and both the agreeable and the disagreeable that arose cease just as quickly, just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established. This is called in the Noble One's discipline the supreme development of the faculties regarding flavors cognizable by the tongue. All right, so there's a theme here. So it's simply spotting out whether you like or don't like something as you see, hear, taste, touch, feel things. And when you like something and you don't like something, both of those conditions is dukkha. Because if you like something, then the next step is wanting it. And if you don't like something, then you want it to go away, right? So realizing, if you're paying attention to how quickly the mind works moment by moment, realizing, ooh, I like this, ooh, I don't like this, realizing that that's dukkha, then returning quickly, returning rapidly to equanimity. So relaxing and letting go of that, not realizing it's not me, letting the painful feeling disappear, letting
Wait,
the go ahead.
liking something is dukkha?
Yeah, liking something is dukkha. Because if you like something, then you want it.
Yeah, but you already have it, right? Like if I'm listening to music, I'm like, oh, I like this song. Like
Yeah,
not enjoying that music.
but then it's already going away.
Hmm.
It's disappearing. So I'm saying
So
like
it's best to return to peacefulness, I guess.
return to peacefulness. Yeah, you can like something. The point here, Avery, is that liking or not liking something is not a problem at all. It's actually
Mm-hmm.
it's natural. It's almost it's guaranteed to happen. But
Mm-hmm.
what happens after you like or don't like something? Normally what happens when we like something is that as soon as it disappears, because it's going to disappear, right? You like a
Mm-hmm.
song, you feel high from the song is over,
Mm-hmm.
and you might even want to replay the song and get that same hit of dopamine or whatever, and you replay it and it's not really the same, right?
Hmm.
It you listen to the same song, like trying to get that same like happiness out of it after the first time you listened to it and it was really hitting you, like you really liked it, you're really in the moment. The
Mm-hmm.
second time you may get some of that pleasure again, but the third time probably none of it, and the fourth
Hmm.
time even less, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Getting
So
to things is
that
sort of
that
like,
that's the dukkha that I'm talking about. So
yeah.
can you the trick here is, can you like something and then let it go, right? Like
Hmm.
it, enjoy it, but then let it go. Return to peacefulness. Don't don't try don't try to derive your happiness out of anything in the world. So anything you see, anything you hear, anything you touch, anything you taste. Yeah, Robert, you want to say something?
Yeah, sure. A couple of things to add. So, um, this is a great topic. Thank you for bringing this up. So one is, I think that there is a certain beauty to the impermanence of phenomena, right?
Right.
So, one funny example of this is people that love to go to follow the Grateful Dead. They're going to follow the Dead all over the country constantly, and every single time they go to the concert, it's a little bit different, right?
Mm.
And so they're not really chasing the same thing. They're chasing kind of a variation of that thing. And they keep going, not because they're living in the past, but because they find the uniqueness of each concert to be fulfilling in and of itself. And there's also that great story that Dhammarato tells about a John Cha and a John Sumedo and the women at the Wat. I posted a little comment about it just now. Um, where when they would have like an ordination of a monk or some big ceremony, um, all the women in the community would show up and they would be dressed to the nines and everything. And John Cha asked Sumedo, what do you think of that? And he said, I like it, but I don't want it.
Right. That's the important thing. So yeah, so like that's what determines whether you return to equanimity or whether you get lost into ignorance and you get lost in dukkha and you get lost in the hedonic treadmill. Um, and another thing um, that brought up for me that you mentioned the Grateful Dead concert is the metaphor of the river. So you never touch the same water in a river twice, right?
Yep.
And so the river is a metaphor for our experience. You never see the same exact thing twice. You never hear the same exact thing twice. Um, reality unfolds like welcome, Marcus. Good to have you. Reality unfolds like a river, and things are constantly appearing and disappearing, and you never experience the same thing twice, or never experience exactly the same thing twice. So if we can realize this, we can not make ourselves suffer by trying to get back what has disappeared and realizing that new things are on the way, right?
that actually works pretty well with music, because whenever I listen to a song I really like, it is kind of different every time I listen to it. It's a totally different experience.
Yeah. So if you can just take each moment as it comes, as a fresh and new moment, and not crave for any type of past pleasure that you got, right? Don't compare this moment to a past moment, and don't project it into a future moment either. So that's what makes you.
And that's good advice. That's very wise to notice, to be able to know that when people crave an experience, they're craving something that they probably experienced in the past, or they're craving a certain thing, when
Right.
instead they're not going to get the same thing twice ever.
Right. Exactly. So just having the wisdom to realize that, you can save yourself from the suffering that you would have caused yourself. That's the whole point, is waking up to this stuff. And if you had never had experienced anything at all, there would be nothing to crave for. So craving only arises in relationship to a past experience, if you think about it. Or something that you can imagine is real. So like imagine is real in the future. So somebody like when you're a kid, before you hit puberty, before you knew about sex, you didn't want sex, right? Um, so like there was no craving in your mind whatsoever for it at all. It was only when you had learned about it did you want it, right? So you projected into the future a potential pleasure that's not there, or something that you do get that you don't have anymore. You imagine it from the past and compare it to the present moment, and cause yourself a sense of lack, a sense of not enough, right? Instead of taking each moment as it comes, seeing it for what it is, and then letting go of that, okay? Realizing that whatever it is going to disappear. As soon as it appears, it's already disappearing, whether you like or don't like it. So chill out, relax. Don't get too invested in it. It's not a good investment. The world is a bad investment because the world is doomed, you know? Like there's no such thing as the world lasting forever, or moving towards any kind of good thing. Like even if humans civilization managed to not destroy itself, eventually it will come to an end, just because the sun's going to explode, right? The universe will eventually not be sustainable for human life in the world. So I'm talking, I'm getting a little theoretical here, but to bring it back to our experience of the world. So what I mean by the world is everything we see, everything we hear, everything we uh, touch, everything we taste. That's the world. Okay. And it's not a good investment to invest your happiness in it, because it's going to disappear, right? It's already disappearing every moment, and then eventually the body will die. Yeah, go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, there's also a way in which impermanence can, and being cognizant of impermanence can make a lot of everyday phenomena more pleasurable. Like if you read Proust, he'll have an entire page on the reflection of sunlight in a cup of tea, and just how beautiful this particular moment is with the way the sun is reflecting off the teacup, and how the cookie tastes that he's enjoying with his cup of tea, and how this is all fleeting and this sort of thing. So this is something that can bring us great pleasure too, if we realize how special every moment can be in its own right.
Yeah, so enjoying what is there, instead of uh imagining what's not there, and causing yourself suffering. So enjoying what's there, whatever it is, you know, the little things in life, the colors of the evening sky, the subtle sounds of nature, the feeling of your butt against the chair, anything, just as long as it's a real experience, right? I'm gonna continue it unless there's something else. I'm gonna continue with the sutta.
Oh yeah, just to bounce off that really quick. I had a conversation at my work a few months ago, and my boss was talking about how we would all be better off if we lowered our standards for happiness, which is
Right.
true. But then I said, well, you know, I think a healthier way to put that is enjoying the smaller things in life instead of lowering your standards. Enjoy the small things. I just think that's a more positive framing, you know.
I would take that one step further and say get rid of the standards entirely for happiness. Why do we need a standard? You don't need a reason to be happy. In fact, everything that you might derive happiness from in the world is going to cause suffering. That happiness is conditioned. So the idea is to kind of turn away from it all and realize happiness that is unconditioned. So unconditional happiness, which is possible. So it's not, it might sound far out there, but it's possible. And that's the goal of any spiritual tradition. Like if you look at any enlightenment tradition, like it's about realizing happiness that is not conditioned upon the senses, or like conditioned upon phenomenal reality. Because phenomenal reality is it's insubstantial, it's empty, it's fleeting. Okay, so I'm going to continue. Again, Ananda, when a bhikkhu touches a tangible with the body, there arises in him what is agreeable. There arises what is disagreeable. There arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable. He understands thus ellipses, and equanimity is established. Just as a strong man might extend his flexed arm or flex his extended arm, so too concerning anything at all. The agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, and both agreeable and disagreeable that arose, cease just as quickly, just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established. This is called in the Noble One's discipline the supreme development of the faculties regarding tangibles cognizable by the body. Again, Ananda, when a bhikkhu cognizes a mind object with his mind, there arises in him what is agreeable, there arises what is disagreeable. There arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable. He understands thus ellipses, and equanimity is established. Just as if a man were to let 2 or 3 drops of water fall onto an iron plate heated for a whole day. The falling of the drops might be slow, but they would quickly vaporize and vanish. So too concerning anything at all, the agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, and both the agreeable and disagreeable that arose cease just as quickly, just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established. This is called the Noble One's discipline. That is how there is supreme development of the faculties in the Noble One's discipline. And how Ananda is one of the disciple in higher training, one who has entered upon the way. Here, Ananda, when a bhikkhu sees a form with the eye, hears a sound with the ear, smells an odor with the nose, tastes a flavor with the tongue, touches a tangible with the body, cognizes a mind object with the mind, there arises in him what is agreeable, there arises what is disagreeable. There arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable. He is ashamed, humiliated, and disgusted by the agreeable that arose, by the disagreeable that arose, and by both the agreeable and the disagreeable. That is how one is a disciple in higher training, one who has entered upon the way. Yeah, so that's kind of extreme, but there's some power in that, some like meditative power, some meditative instruction. So a disciple in higher training who has entered upon the way is ashamed, humiliated, and disgusted by anything that was agreeable or disagreeable. Right? That's kind of, that may seem like really extreme, but really what that's talking about is disenchantment for it, realizing it's impermanent. So re-engineering the mind's tendencies, habitual tendencies to when it likes something, to reject it, to not want it, right? The liking already happened, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with liking something. But to reject, to want it. So seeing all of that mind's capacity to make us suffer as disgusting, humiliating. And how Ananda is a noble one with developed faculties. So it's going to talk about the capabilities of a noble one with developed faculties. Here Ananda, when a bhikkhu sees a form with the eye, hears a sound with the ear, smells an odor with the nose, tastes a flavor with the tongue, touches a tangible with the body, cognizes a mind object with the mind. There arises in him what is agreeable. There arises what is disagreeable. There arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable. If he should wish, may I abide perceiving the unrepulsive in the repulsive. He abides perceiving the unrepulsive in the repulsive. If he should wish, may I abide perceiving the repulsive in the unrepulsive. He abides perceiving the repulsive in the unrepulsive. Right, so I definitely can't do this yet. But so the idea is that everything you experience is, in some sense, a mental fabrication. So if you can develop the meditative capacity to realize what the mind is doing at the rapid level it does it. So at the level of liking something and experiencing repulsion or unrepulsiveness. So another way to say repulsion or unrepulsive is wanting or not wanting, right? Repulsion is like, oh, get that away from me. I don't like it. So it's unpleasant, and then you're like, get it away from me. And this is very quick instinctual reaction. And the idea is that a noble one who has developed the faculties completely can, toy around with it and perceive wanting and the not wanting, and not wanting and the wanting. So that's kind of, I think that's pretty cool. I think it's good, it's very inspiring for practice. He abides perceiving the unrepulsive in that. If he should wish, may I abide perceiving the repulsive in the unrepulsive, and the repulsive. He abides perceiving the repulsive in that. If he should wish, may I avoid both the repulsive and unrepulsive, abide in equanimity, mindful and fully aware. He abides in equanimity towards that, mindful and fully aware. That is how one is a noble one with the developed faculties. So he can just be equanimous and mindful and fully aware irrespective of pleasant or painful feelings, or agreeable or disagreeable sights, sounds, taste, touch, etc. So Ananda, the supreme development of the faculties in the Noble One's discipline has been taught by me. The disciple in higher training who has entered upon the way has been taught by me. And the Noble One with developed faculties has been taught by me. What should be done for his disciples out of compassion by a teacher who seeks their welfare and has compassion for them, that I have done for you, Ananda. There are these roots of trees, these empty huts. Meditate, Ananda, do not delay, or else you will regret it later. This is our instruction to you. That is what the Blessed One said. The Venerable Ananda was satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. All right, so that's the end of the sutta. Is there any questions, comments, things anyone wants to talk about?
Sure. So yeah, I find this bit about the repulsion and the unrepulsion, and this sort of exercise of sort of reversing the habitual reaction to a sensation or perception to be pretty interesting. I've actually kind of tried it out a few times, sort of with sights, which is probably, I think it's different for everyone, but for me, like, the act of seeing feels like it's sort of a little bit less tangible. Like, for example, if I were to experience a pain in the body, like, that is a very strongly repulsive feeling that is hard to deal with.
Right.
But yeah, at least with sights, I've found that sort of getting rid of this repulsion is easy. But when I have like a strong liking for someone, like turning that into disliking is very, very difficult.
Right. Yeah. So this that's a good point. So recently I dislocated my shoulder, and it's not really very easy to just take the intense painful sensations and not experience any repulsion to that. But yeah, that's a good point. If you see something normally you wouldn't like, or see something normally you would like, that might be an easier place to start the practice. And then for the other thing you're talking about, so liking someone, that would be a mind object. I mean, if the person isn't there, it's a mind object, right? So it's a mind object, your idea of that person, and you either want it or you think about your boss and you don't want it, right? Or you think about maybe somebody you don't like, some resentment comes up. That would be repulsion to a mind object. Now, if you're in the presence of this person, you're either seeing them, touching them, hearing them, tasting them, maybe, smelling them. So, and then you experience repulsion or wanting or not wanting in a response to those senses. So, I think probably the main takeaway from the sutta is bring things into a very direct reality of your experience. So the practice is experiential, based on moment to moment mind responses to our senses. It's not really a concept. So it's not really the mind object of thinking about meditating itself. It's about developing or waking up to what the mind does as a response to what you see, everything you experience, and then letting that go as quickly as possible and returning to the meditation, or returning to the peacefulness, returning to the equanimity. And then you just practice, oh, wake up, that's dukkha. Let that go, relax, chill out. I don't need that. I can be satisfied without that. you know, practicing satisfaction. I don't need a pleasant feeling to be satisfied, even. I don't need a pleasant sound. I can be satisfied without that. So that would be the returning to the equanimity. And then spotting when the mind goes away from that, when it wants something or doesn't want something, spotting that as quickly as possible and returning to the, it's okay. I don't need that. I can be happy. I can be satisfied. And letting that experience vanish. And then doing it repetitively so you develop unification of mind around the experience of equanimity. So returning over and over and over again, it's going to develop an inertia. Eventually the mind will naturally be letting go, naturally be returning to equanimity. And you can get into, that's how you get into first jhana. So you can get into first jhana, and then you're going to be experiencing piti and sukha, which is it's experiences that the mind likes. PT is liking. So and then not change the practice, keep returning to the equanimity, and just let the PT and Sukha vanish, or let the wholesome thoughts vanish. That would be second jhana, and then letting the PT and Sukha vanish. So not being not grasping to the PT and Sukha, letting it vanish, appreciating it and letting it vanish. That would be going into third jhana. At least the just the PT vanishes, and then there's just Sukha would be third jhana, and then one step further, not clinging to even the Sukha, and then that vanishes. That would be fourth jhana, right? So the practice is the same in the beginning, is the same in the end, right? That's why I really like this sutta, because it kind of, I think it's a good like teaching of the fundamentals, but it doesn't mean that there isn't a progression still, and there isn't a coming out of the hindrances and getting into first jhana, and then congratulate yourself for getting into first jhana. That's a great thing to relish and appreciate that. But I can be satisfied without first jhana. First jhana is impermanent. You know, even if I get into first jhana, I'm not going to be in first jhana forever. So if I make my happiness dependent upon first jhana, then I'm going to cause myself dukkha, right? So I don't need first jhana to be happy. So that's like, it's just always bringing it back to the fundamentals, just practicing satisfaction. And that's the path to nibbana, or total nibbana. Is like just unconditioned happiness, happiness that's not based on anything, any sort of phenomena. That is what time and time again, and in my study with the suttas, says is the magnum opus of meditation, or like that's the fruition of the path, right? And the way there is by practicing being satisfied, without anything, right? Just being happy with nothing, or just being happy with the way things are, just being okay with things. Being okay with, like, equanimity is a fancy word for saying being okay with the way things are, right? That's a much simpler way to put it. Taking a deep breath, relax, let go, smile. It's all good. You know? There's nothing to worry about. Nothing is worth clinging to. Everything that you think is important really isn't that important at the end of the day. So release yourself from the prison of wanting things to be different than the way that they are right now. I mean, even the mind object of nibbana, or the mind object of being a noble one, right? Attaining anything, that's a mind object. And you can be satisfied without that. You can realize that that mind object of getting something that you don't have is what is creating your dukkha. Like Dhammarato says, someone who can be happy without enlightenment is more enlightened than someone who claims to be enlightened, right? I'm good. Like, I don't need to be enlightened, right? I'm practicing happy without that, you know? I make mistakes. I'm human. I don't need to be enlightened. I'm okay just the way I am, right? So the practice. Ah, what a relief. All right, well, it seems that the talk has come to its natural conclusion. You're welcome to sit here and appreciate noble silence with me, unless there's another question or a topic. Floor is yours.